Now to some breaking news. There's a major development in the Middle East. Israeli officials tell the Associated Press that a new plan has been approved to seize all the territory in Gaza and then occupy it indefinitely.
Before I respond to this latest news, I wanted to give a bit of an introduction to who I am. I'm Mike Brand, aka Mike the Idealist, and my expertise is in mass atrocities prevention. I spent most of my career working on advocacy, policy, and programs to improve the ability to prevent and respond to genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and ethnic cleansing. Most of my work is focused on Central East Africa, Sudan, and South Sudan, though I've also worked on other crises in Asia and the Middle East. I've spent a lot of time living and working abroad in South Sudan, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Uganda. In addition to my advocacy and policy work, I'm also an adjunct professor of mass atrocities and international law and human rights. I'm also the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. I consider myself an atheist Jew, and I have many friends in Israel and have visited Israel several times. Now, with that said, let's talk about what's happening right now in Gaza. We need to be clear. It was always Netanyahu's plan to conquer the Gaza Strip. The idea that Israel was perpetrating a war against Hamas to return the hostages and defeat Hamas was never the endgame. The endgame was always to reoccupy Gaza and do it in perpetuity. We are now seeing that play out in real time. The only reason why this has been allowed to happen is because the Biden administration blindly supported Netanyahu in Israel and did not push back against the Israeli government, try to set up some guardrails against violating international law while they were clearly committing and perpetrating mass atrocities in the Gaza Strip. Even worse, instead of pushing back, Biden kept sending more weapons and providing diplomatic coverage at the United Nations. Then you have the Trump administration come in and fully endorse a plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza. The fact that we had the United States providing the arms, the support, and the political coverage in the international community is so problematic. The fact that we had the United States providing the arms, the support, and the political coverage at the international community is so problematic because this is so clearly the definition of genocide and ethnic cleansing. Genocide is the intent to destroy in whole or in part an ethnic, national, racial, or religious group, including not only killing members of that group, but creating conditions of life calculated to bring about the destruction of that group in whole or in part. You see that with Israel's destruction of most of the homes and buildings in Gaza, making the place seemingly unlivable. You see that with Israel blocking of humanitarian aid, food, water, medicine, fuel, etc. You see that with the relentless assault on hospitals, ensuring that people will not be able to survive, targeting the group as a whole and imposing collective punishment on everyone, including children and babies. And ethnic cleansing is the forcible displacement of a population with the goal of replacing a population with another homogenous group of a different ethnic group, which is exactly what Israel is trying to accomplish. They want to remove Palestinians from Gaza and repopulate the region with Israelis. Just the classic definition of ethnic cleansing. There were plans to establish new settlements in Gaza in the earliest days of the war, and we're seeing that full plan come to fruition now. So we need to understand what's happening. We need to be honest about what's happening, and we need to push back against it. It's not anti-Semitic to say that Israel is violating international law, that the government of Israel is committing war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and ethnic cleansing. It's also not both sidesism to say that what Hamas did on October 7th also violated international law, and the perpetrators should be held accountable for their crimes. However, the atrocities on October 7th do not justify the mass atrocities since October 7th. And that is something that I want to make extremely clear. There is never any justification for committing genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, or ethnic cleansing. There just isn't. The latest plan from Israel to reoccupy the Gaza Strip is just the end of this long, horrible, horrific situation that we've been witnessing. And it calls into question the ability of the international community to actually stand up against perpetrators of mass atrocities, especially when those perpetrators are protected by some of the most powerful governments around the world. Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more mass atrocities committed by several governments and non-state actors around the world. We see mass atrocities today from Sudan to Myanmar, China to Ukraine, Israel and Gaza, West Bank. There's so many places where governments are purposefully attacking their own people, committing mass atrocities against them, and committing mass atrocities against other people. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the Responsibility to Protect. a pledge that the world leaders acknowledged and agreed to back in 2005. The responsibility to protect basically said that it was the responsibility of all governments to protect their people from mass atrocities, from war crimes, from crimes against humanity, genocide, and ethnic cleansing. But if and when a country was not able to, or was actually committing those atrocities themselves, it was the responsibility of the international community to step in through the auspices of the United Nations and do something about it. The priority was always on prevention, but if and when prevention failed, it was incumbent on the international community to help protect civilians from those harms. The international community is failing to live up to the responsibility to protect, not only in Gaza, but around the world. We now are in a situation where all 5 of the permanent members of the UN Security Council are complicit in mass atrocities, either by directly committing them in the case of China against the Uyghurs and Russia against the population in Ukraine, or by complicity in supporting and aiding and abetting the commission of mass atrocities in the case of the United States, the United Kingdom, and France, all of whom have supported Israel in their genocidal campaign against the people living in Gaza. We all need to be speaking out more against mass atrocities that are happening everywhere around the world, whether that's against Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, whether that's in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Myanmar, in Sudan, in South Sudan, in Ethiopia, in China, in Ukraine, wherever they occur. We all need to be doing more to raise awareness about these crimes, to speak out against them, to, when it's possible, call on your elected officials, demand them to take more action. We need to be doing more, collectively and individually. In the case of Israel, for far too long it has been taboo to speak out against the Israeli government. We've seen double standards, we've seen protection, we've seen burying heads in the sand. No more. We need to be able to be honest about what's happening. We need to be able to call it out. And we need to be able to speak out against the actions of the Israeli government and separate that from the individuals and the Israeli people and the Jewish people writ large. Just as you can criticize the American government without being anti-American, you can criticize the Israeli government without being anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. It's that simple.